He was a Christian, but he killed his imperial father-in-law, then his imperial brother-in-law, then his own biological son, and possibly his wife. Later, he killed his own imperial colleague, another brother-in-law, along with his nephew. He persecuted Christian minorities, destroyed Greek temples, and prohibited sacrifice. But he had no problem with people praising him and even venerating his statues. He was the very first politician to make Sunday a holiday and to offer tax benefits to churches. Of course, I'm talking about the Emperor Constantine, who called himself the Conqueror and whom history sometimes calls the Great. He certainly did something great, or at least impressive, when he changed the state religion of Rome from polytheism to Christian henotheism. And during the 13 years of his sole rule, Constantine effectively overturned 1,000 years of religious tradition. He convinced a traditional society that ancestral and indigenous forms of worship were incorrect. Catholic Christians of Constantine's time praised the emperor to the skies, but many Christians today see his reign as the corruption of Christianity, when the Roman state and the Christian church became part of a single system, when all the backstabbing and jealousies endemic to politics infected the Holy Catholic Church, which forever lost the right to be called holy in any plausible sense. I'm Dr. David Litwa, and if you enjoy free scholarly content, I hope that you will subscribe to this channel, check out my published books, and join my online school, the Gnosis Academy, where you will find loads of courses in the fields of Gnostic and Hermetic studies, the New Testament, and early Christianity. If you want summaries of scholarly literature, you can sign up for free on my website, the Gnostic Archive. All the links are in the description. Now, Constantine does have many points in his favor. He has the honor of forbidding crucifixion as a capital punishment. His basic humanity is also displayed in his decision to ban all gladiatorial games. But despite these positive enactments, Constantine did things that can well be considered far below Christian morality. He executed his son Crispus on what seems to have been a false charge in 326. Crispus was, at the time, appointed Caesar and was instrumental in securing his father's supreme power. Eusebius called Crispus an emperor most dear to God and in every way resembling his father. Constantine may have been involved in the death of his wife Fausta, who may have been the one to bring the false charge. Fausta's death seems like something out of the Game of Thrones. Reportedly, she was put in an overheated bath or sauna, and so she was literally steamed or boiled to death. Although unprovoked, Constantine started 3 civil wars in which thousands upon thousands of Roman soldiers died. He persecuted non-Catholic Christians, Jews, and the followers of traditional indigenous religions. Constantine regarded Jews as quote-unquote murderers of the Lord, and he believed that it was wrong for any Jew to have power over a Christian. Hence, he made a law that Jews could not have Christian slaves. He prohibited Jews from circumcising non-Christian slaves, as well as from seeking or accepting Christian converts to Judaism, and from attempting to prevent fellow Jews from converting to Christianity. These laws represent a significant departure in the long-standing Roman policy of tolerating Judaism. Constantine was a Christian, but he didn't mind being venerated. In other words, he didn't suppress the imperial cult in his new Christian empire. He still considered it useful for his subjects to display loyalty to him. There were still imperial shrines and temples dedicated to Constantine. On the emperor's birthday, there would have been imperial games and offerings in many cities, just no blood sacrifice. In North Africa, there was even a priesthood of Constantine. According to a report of Philostorgius, the church historian, Christians in Constantinople venerated a statue of Constantine set on a pillar with offerings like lighted candles and the burning of incense. They also prayed to Constantine and performed supplication to ward off evils. The statue depicted Constantine as holding a spear and a globe representing world domination. Possibly it had a crown of rays like the sun god. As emperor, Constantine was Pontifex Maximus, or supreme priest, who was tasked with guarding Roman religious traditions. Ironically, he overturned most of these ancient traditions. Instead, Constantine positioned himself as the protector and interpreter of the new state religion, Christianity. He thought it perfectly proper, therefore, to call church councils and to attend them in person, and even to contribute in the debates. In his own understanding, Constantine was bishop or overseer of the citizenry. Even if that citizenry was not Christian, Constantine thought it was his duty to make them Christian. Despite his consistent support of Catholic Christians, it seems hard to deny that Constantine himself was an Arian Christian, baptized by the famous Arian bishop Eusebius of Nicomedia. In his speech to the Assembly of the Saints, Constantine referred to Jesus as a second God, separated numerically from his Father and having his essence derived from the first God. Constantine's own theological emphasis was on the supreme God, who is thought of as an autocrat, and he has almost nothing to say about Jesus, the man of Nazareth. Even when Eusebius praises Constantine in the final year of his life, 336, he never mentions Christ or Jesus. In Constantinople, Constantine built a church of the 12 apostles over a site on which had stood an altar to the 12 gods of traditional Hellenism. In this church, he placed his own tomb. Effectively, Constantine made himself the 13th apostle, equivalent to the founders of Christianity. Even today, some Greek Orthodox Christians celebrate Constantine as the 13th apostle or as the equal to the apostles. He is a canonized saint in the Orthodox Church, though interestingly not in the Roman Catholic Church. Perhaps this emperor considered himself to be the founder of a new sort of Christianity. And in a sense, he was, since he founded a sort of Christianity funded and empowered by the state to enforce its doctrines and rights upon society. This form of Christianity was completely novel, but it would persist for the next 1,000 years or more until the Byzantine Empire fell to that other monotheist empire, the Islamic one. After Constantine died in May of 330, there was a purge in his court. Constantine's sons slaughtered any male relative who could pose a threat, including the father of the later Emperor Julian. The summer of 330 was thus called the Summer of Blood. The savagery of Constantine's sons has ever since tarnished the memory of Constantine and encouraged skeptics to doubt the sincerity of his conversion to Christianity. But Constantine himself set the precedent for savagery. He was a man of war and of blood, and so he logically waited until the very last moment in order to receive forgiveness of sins through baptism. Perhaps one might say that brutality is necessary for a Roman emperor. Constantine's Christian faith didn't change his highly political and strategic morality. He refused to cooperate with non-Christian emperors. He killed an imperial claimant, a senior emperor, the son of a senior emperor, and his imperial colleagues, so that only his own sons would succeed him. And in order to do this, he also killed his own son's grandfather and possibly their own mother. Constantine was an autocrat. He practiced religious toleration when he had to, but in his heart, he was convinced that the empire should convert to his own religion. He did not believe in freedom of religion or freedom of expression more broadly. He modeled his own autocratic rule on what he thought was the autocratic rule of the supreme being. He brutally murdered his political opponents. Those who despised his policies were robbed of their ability to protest. Accordingly, very little survives of the Hellenic writers who opposed the policies of Constantine. Instead, we're forced to reconstruct history from those Christian bishops and teachers who lauded Constantine to the stars, often in the most flowery and bombastic language, these writers thought that their own Christian truth was confirmed by the military victories of Constantine. If Constantine wasn't a good Christian, he was certainly a good soldier. And doubtless Constantine believed that the emperors who persecuted Christians had been punished by God. But Constantine himself was their main punisher, and he killed them for his own political advantage. Maxentius drowned fighting Constantine. Maximinus was beaten in battle and killed himself. Licinius lost two great battles, and after he had willingly given up, Constantine swore on oath that he would spare his life, but a few months later, he hanged him. And he didn't just kill Licinius, but he murdered the son of Licinius, who happened to be his sister's son and thus his underage nephew. Killing apparent heirs was not an aberration. It was a precedent set by Constantine. Doubtless Constantine considered it an act of providence that he could wipe out his non-Christian enemies in battle. He probably felt the smile of God upon him and consciously fought under a Christian standard. He wove together church and state so tightly that it took more than 1,500 years to dissolve those ties. And even today, in modern democracies, the idea of Christian empire is still romanticized. Although they say they believe in freedom of thought, some Christians still attempt to use state and institutional power to support their faith-based policies. But to truly establish a Christian nation, one must be prepared to kill. And Constantine was most certainly prepared to kill, and he did so on a regular basis. His militarization of the Christian God was combined with the idea that his own murders, among many other sins, could be wiped out by baptism. These are highly dangerous ideas. Julian, the emperor, used Constantine's baptism in order to ridicule the rite itself, saying, quote, "Whoever is corrupt, stained with blood, abominable and disgusting, let him come with no fear, for I will appear and immediately wash him clean with this water." According to Julian, because Constantine's hands were dripping with kindred blood, he was very happy to hear Jesus' message about free forgiveness. One could say that the Byzantine experiment of Christian theocracy failed when Muslim armies overran Constantine's imperial city in the 15th century. But this was just one theocracy beating another. The truth is, even today, democratic countries must fight implicitly against theocratic ideas. Jesus could rightfully ask Constantine and the theocrats who followed him, "What good is it to gain the whole world and to lose your soul?"